In the ancient kingdom of Valdoria, where mountains kissed the clouds and forests whispered secrets to the wind, there lived a young prince named Edmund, who carried the hopes of an entire realm upon his small shoulders. The boy, barely 10 summers old, possessed eyes that sparkled like emeralds, and a spirit that burned brighter than the castle's grandest torches. His father, King Aldric, ruled with wisdom and compassion, but shadows had begun to gather around the throne like storm clouds before a tempest. The kingdom had enjoyed peace for many years under King Aldric's reign, but recently, whispers of discontent had begun to spread through the royal court like poison in a well. At the center of these troubling rumors stood Lady Morwen, the king's own sister-in-law, who had married into the royal family during more peaceful times. She was a woman of striking beauty, with raven black hair and eyes cold as winter frost, but beneath her elegant exterior lay ambitions as sharp as a blade and twice as dangerous. Lady Morwen had always believed that she deserved to rule Valdoria herself. She had been born into nobility in the neighboring kingdom of Ravencrest, where women could inherit thrones and command armies. When she married King Aldric's younger brother Prince Roderick, she had expected to eventually share in the power of Valdoria's crown. However, Prince Roderick had died unexpectedly in a hunting accident 3 years prior, leaving Morwen a widow with no direct claim to power except through her cunning and manipulation. The royal castle of Valdoria stood majestically atop a hill overlooking the capital city of Goldenhaven, its towers reaching toward the heavens like stone fingers grasping for the stars. Within its walls lived hundreds of courtiers, servants, guards, and nobles, all part of the complex web of palace life. Yet among all these people, none were more respected or feared than Sir Gareth the Ironwall, captain of the King's Guard and protector of the royal family. Sir Gareth was a man carved from legend itself. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, with shoulders broad enough to block a doorway and arms strong enough to wield his massive sword with the grace of a dancer, he commanded respect wherever he walked. His hair had turned silver early, not from age but from the weight of responsibility he carried. Scars crisscrossed his weathered face, each one telling a story of battles fought and victories won in service to the crown. His eyes, steel gray and sharp as a hawk's, missed nothing and forgave even less when it came to protecting those under his care. For 15 years, Sir Gareth had served the royal family with unwavering loyalty. He had saved King Aldric's life on numerous occasions, fought beside him in the Great War against the Shadowlands, and had personally trained every member of the King's Guard. The other knights looked up to him not just as their captain, but as a father figure and mentor. The common people whispered tales of his heroic deeds in taverns and around hearth fires, and children played games pretending to be the legendary Sir Gareth, defending their homes from imaginary monsters. But perhaps most importantly, Sir Gareth had developed a special bond with young Prince Edmund. From the moment the prince could walk, Gareth had been his constant shadow and protector. The knight taught the boy swordplay in the castle courtyard, shared stories of ancient heroes during long winter evenings, and showed him what it meant to lead with honor and courage. In many ways, Sir Gareth had become more than just a guard to Edmund. He was a second father, a mentor, and the one person in the entire kingdom whom the prince trusted above all others. Lady Morwen watched this relationship with growing resentment and frustration. She had tried numerous times to gain influence over young Edmund, offering him sweets and gifts, telling him tales that painted his father as weak and unprepared to rule. She had even attempted to convince the king that Edmund needed different tutors, ones more aligned with her own political views. But every attempt was thwarted by Sir Gareth's presence and his unshakable loyalty to the royal bloodline. The knight had noticed Lady Morwen's subtle manipulations from the beginning. He observed how she positioned herself near Edmund during court ceremonies, how she whispered in the ears of certain nobles who might support her cause, and how she had slowly been building a network of allies within the castle walls. Sir Gareth's instincts, honed by years of protecting the royal family from both obvious and hidden threats, told him that Lady Morwen represented a danger unlike any he had faced before. This was not an enemy with sword and shield charging across a battlefield, but a viper in silk and jewels, striking from within the very heart of the kingdom. The political situation in Valdoria had become increasingly complex as various factions within the nobility began to align themselves with different potential futures for the kingdom. Some supported King Aldric's continued rule and looked forward to Prince Edmund eventually taking the throne. Others whispered that perhaps a more experienced hand was needed, someone who understood the harsh realities of political maneuvering and international diplomacy. Lady Morwen had carefully cultivated this second group, presenting herself as a wise and capable leader who could guide the kingdom through uncertain times. The castle's daily routine continued as it always had, with morning training sessions in the courtyard where Sir Gareth personally oversaw Edmund's education in swordplay and mounted combat. The prince showed remarkable natural talent for these martial arts, displaying the quick reflexes and brave heart that would serve him well as a future king. But even during these innocent training sessions, Sir Gareth remained vigilant, his eyes constantly scanning the surrounding walls and windows for any sign of threat or unusual activity. Afternoons were typically reserved for Edmund's academic studies, where he learned about the history of Valdoria, the principles of just governance, and the complex relationships between different kingdoms and trading partners. Lady Morwen had managed to insert herself into some of these educational sessions, offering to share her knowledge of foreign customs and political strategies. While her contributions appeared helpful on the surface, Sir Gareth noticed how she subtly undermined confidence in traditional Valdorian values and questioned the wisdom of King Aldric's peaceful policies. Evenings in the castle brought formal dinners where the entire royal court would gather in the Great Hall, beneath banners representing centuries of Valdorian heritage. These meals were elaborate affairs with multiple courses, flowing wine and entertainment provided by traveling minstrels and court musicians. Lady Morwen used these occasions to strengthen her political alliances, moving gracefully between tables and engaging in seemingly casual conversations that advanced her hidden agenda. Sir Gareth positioned himself strategically during these events, always maintaining clear sightlines to Prince Edmund while listening carefully to the undertones of political discussion flowing around the room. The relationship between King Aldric and Lady Morwen remained cordial on the surface, as royal protocol demanded, but Sir Gareth detected growing tension between them during private family moments. The king had begun to notice his sister-in-law's increasing boldness in offering unsolicited advice about kingdom management and her pointed questions about succession planning. While Aldric was not yet ready to take direct action against a member of his extended family, he had quietly asked Sir Gareth to increase security measures around Prince Edmund and to report any suspicious activities within the castle walls. As autumn deepened into winter, the political undercurrents within Valdoria's royal court grew stronger and more dangerous. Lady Morwen's faction had grown to include several influential nobles, 2 members of the King's Advisory Council, and even some officers within the regular castle guard who had been swayed by promises of advancement under her potential leadership. Sir Gareth realized that the threat to Prince Edmund and the legitimate royal line had evolved from a distant possibility into an immediate and present danger that would soon require decisive action to counter. The legendary guard understood that protecting Prince Edmund would require more than just physical prowess and sword skill. This was a battle for the very soul of Valdoria. A struggle between those who believed in the ancient traditions of rightful succession and those who would reshape the kingdom according to their own ambitions. Sir Gareth prepared himself for the challenges ahead, knowing that everything he had learned and every oath he had sworn would soon be put to the ultimate test in defense of the young prince who represented Valdoria's future and hope. Winter's grip tightened around Valdoria like a mailed fist, bringing with it shorter days, longer shadows, and an atmosphere of growing tension that seemed to seep through the castle's very stones. Snow blanketed the kingdom in pristine white, but beneath this beautiful exterior, darker currents swirled through the political landscape of the realm. Lady Morwen had grown bolder in her machinations, no longer content to work entirely in whispers and shadows. She had begun to openly question certain royal policies during court sessions, always framing her criticism as concerned advice from a devoted family member who only wanted what was best for Valdoria. Sir Gareth noticed these changes immediately, his trained eye catching every subtle shift in palace dynamics and every new alliance that formed around Lady Morwen's growing influence. During the daily changing of the guard, he observed which soldiers seemed distracted or nervous, noting those who had begun to avoid direct eye contact when receiving orders. The legendary knight had developed an almost supernatural ability to read people's intentions through their body language and behavior patterns, skills that had served him well throughout his career, protecting the royal family from countless threats both foreign and domestic. Prince Edmund, despite his young age, had also begun to sense the changing atmosphere within the castle walls. The boy was naturally perceptive, inheriting his father's intelligence along with an intuitive understanding of people that served him well in navigating court politics. During his lessons with various tutors, Edmund noticed how some would glance nervously toward doors and windows when discussing topics related to royal succession or the principles of legitimate governance. When Lady Morwen joined these educational sessions, the entire mood would shift subtly, becoming more formal and guarded as everyone present carefully measured their words. The relationship between Sir Gareth and Prince Edmund deepened during this period of uncertainty, with the knight taking extra time to prepare the young prince for the challenges he might face as both a member of the royal family and potentially as a future king of Valdoria. Their training sessions expanded beyond basic swordplay to include lessons in observation, strategic thinking, and understanding the motivations of those who might seek to use or manipulate royal authority for their own purposes. Sir Gareth taught Edmund how to recognize flattery that masked hidden agendas, how to identify true loyalty versus opportunistic allegiance, and most importantly, how to trust his own instincts when evaluating the intentions of those around him. Lady Morwen's efforts to gain influence over Prince Edmund became increasingly direct and persistent as winter progressed. She would appear unexpectedly during his private study time, offering to help with particularly challenging lessons, or suggesting alternative interpretations of historical events that subtly undermined faith in traditional royal authority. When Edmund practiced his swordsmanship in the courtyard, Lady Morwen would watch from nearby windows or balconies, sometimes approaching afterward to comment on his progress while casually questioning whether such martial training was truly necessary for a modern ruler who might rely more on diplomacy and negotiation than force of arms. The prince, guided by Sir Gareth's careful instruction and his own developing wisdom, began to recognize these interactions for what they truly were: attempts to reshape his understanding of leadership and gradually separate him from the values and traditions that had made Valdoria strong. Edmund learned to respond politely to Lady Morwen's overtures while avoiding commitments or agreements that might later be used against him or his father. This delicate balance required maturity beyond his years, but the prince rose to the challenge with courage and intelligence that impressed even the experienced Sir Gareth. Meanwhile, Lady Morwen's political maneuvering within the broader court structure had begun to bear fruit in ways that concerned both King Aldric and his most trusted guardian. Several key positions within the castle administration had been filled with individuals who owed their advancement to Lady Morwen's recommendation and support. The castle's head treasurer, chief diplomat, and even the captain of the gate guard had all been replaced over recent months, with candidates who appeared qualified on the surface, but whose true loyalties remained questionable to those who understood the subtle game being played for control of Valdoria's future. Sir Gareth responded to these developments by quietly strengthening his own network of loyal supporters throughout the castle and kingdom. He met privately with knights and guards whom he had personally trained and who had proven their dedication through years of faithful service. These conversations never directly accused Lady Morwen of treasonous intent, but they reinforced the importance of maintaining absolute loyalty to King Aldric and Prince Edmund while remaining vigilant against any threats to the legitimate royal line. The legendary knight also reached out to trusted allies among the nobility, merchants, and common people who remembered the peace and prosperity that Valdoria had enjoyed under traditional royal leadership. The winter solstice brought the annual Festival of Lights, Valdoria's most important cultural celebration, when the entire kingdom would gather to honor the longest night and welcome the return of longer days. This festival traditionally involved elaborate ceremonies at the royal castle, with representatives from every village and town bringing gifts and tributes to demonstrate their continued allegiance to the crown. Lady Morwen saw this gathering as an perfect opportunity to showcase her own popularity and influence, while Sir Gareth recognized it as a potential moment of maximum vulnerability for Prince Edmund and the royal family. Preparations for the Festival of Lights revealed the extent to which Lady Morwen had managed to insert her supporters into key positions throughout the castle hierarchy. The ceremony's planning committee included several of her allies, who subtly shaped the event's structure to provide opportunities for Lady Morwen to address the assembled crowds and demonstrate her connection to Valdoria's noble families. The seating arrangements, speaking order, and even the selection of musical entertainment reflected her growing influence, though these changes appeared innocuous to casual observers who didn't understand the underlying political implications. Sir Gareth worked tirelessly during the festival preparations to ensure Prince Edmund's safety while maintaining the appearance of normal ceremonial procedures. He personally inspected every area where the prince would appear, checked the backgrounds and loyalties of all servants and guards who would have access to royal areas during the celebration, and established multiple contingency plans for various emergency scenarios. The knight's experience told him that public events like the Festival of Lights created numerous opportunities for those with hostile intentions, whether their plans involved physical harm, kidnapping, or simply creating situations where a young prince might be separated from his protectors and subjected to unwanted influence. The festival itself proved to be a magnificent spectacle that drew thousands of visitors to the capital city of Golden Haven, with the royal castle serving as the centerpiece for days of celebration, feasting, and entertainment. Prince Edmund performed his ceremonial duties with grace and dignity that impressed all who witnessed his public appearances, but Sir Gareth remained constantly alert for any sign of danger or unusual activity among the crowds of nobles, foreign dignitaries, and common citizens who filled the castle's halls and courtyards. The legendary knight noticed how Lady Morwen positioned herself strategically throughout the various ceremonies, always appearing supportive of the royal family while subtly drawing attention to her own presence and authority within the court structure. On the final night of the Festival of Lights, as elaborate fireworks painted the winter sky in brilliant colors and the entire kingdom seemed to celebrate in harmony, Sir Gareth detected subtle signs that suggested Lady Morwen might be preparing to make a more decisive move in her campaign for power. Conversations between her supporters had taken on a more urgent tone, and several individuals who typically avoided direct contact with the royal family had been observed in private meetings with Lady Morwen's inner circle. The knight's instincts warned him that the period of subtle maneuvering and political positioning might soon give way to more direct and dangerous action against Prince Edmund and the legitimate royal authority he represented. As the festival concluded and winter settled once again over Valdoria, Sir Gareth intensified his protective measures around Prince Edmund while beginning to formulate plans for more decisive action should Lady Morwen's ambitions pose an immediate threat to the young prince's safety. The legendary knight understood that the game of politics and power within the royal court had reached a critical juncture, and that the coming weeks or months would likely determine not only Prince Edmund's personal fate, but the future direction of the entire kingdom of Valdoria and its proud traditions of just and honorable governance. The arrival of spring in Valdoria brought renewed life to the kingdom's gardens and forests, but within the castle walls, the atmosphere had grown heavy with unspoken tensions and carefully concealed preparations for what many sensed would be an inevitable confrontation. Lady Morwen had spent the winter months consolidating her power base and was now ready to move beyond subtle manipulation toward more direct action in her quest to control Prince Edmund and, through him, the future of Valdoria itself. Her network of supporters had grown to include not only nobles and court officials, but also key figures in the kingdom's military and economic structures, creating a web of influence that threatened the very foundations of traditional royal authority. Sir Gareth had not remained idle during this period of growing danger. The legendary knight had quietly assembled his own coalition of loyal supporters, drawing upon decades of relationships built through shared service, mutual respect, and unwavering dedication to the crown. His network included the most experienced and trustworthy members of the King's Guard, several influential nobles whose families had served the royal line for generations, leaders within the merchant community who valued the stability that legitimate royal rule provided, and even common citizens who understood that their prosperity and freedom depended upon maintaining Valdoria's traditional systems of governance and justice. The political maneuvering between these two factions had become increasingly sophisticated and dangerous, with each side carefully probing for weaknesses while avoiding direct confrontation that might force King Aldrich to choose between his sister-in-law and his most trusted protector. Lady Morwen understood that her position within the royal family provided her with certain protections and advantages, but she also knew that Sir Gareth's reputation for loyalty and effectiveness made him a formidable opponent who could not be easily displaced or discredited through conventional political means. Prince Edmund, now approaching his 11th birthday, had matured considerably under the pressure of these circumstances, developing wisdom and insight that impressed everyone who interacted with him. The young prince had learned to navigate the treacherous waters of court politics with remarkable skill, maintaining polite relationships with all members of the royal court, while never forgetting Sir Gareth's lessons about recognizing true loyalty versus opportunistic allegiance. Edmund's natural intelligence and strong moral character had begun to shine through in ways that made many courtiers and nobles reconsider their political allegiances. recognizing that the kingdom's future might be brighter under his eventual leadership than under alternative arrangements proposed by Lady Morwen and her supporters. The relationship between Sir Gareth and Prince Edmund had evolved beyond that of protector in charge into something resembling a partnership between an experienced mentor and an eager student who showed extraordinary promise. Their daily training sessions had expanded to include not only physical skills and academic subjects, but also practical lessons in leadership, diplomacy, and the complex art of understanding human nature in all its varied forms. Sir Gareth taught Edmund how to inspire loyalty through personal example, how to make difficult decisions that balanced competing interests fairly, and how to recognize when compromise was possible versus when firm stands on principle were necessary for the greater good. During one particularly memorable lesson, Sir Gareth had taken Prince Edmund to visit the kingdom's border regions, where they could observe how royal policies affected the daily lives of ordinary citizens, and how local nobles managed their responsibilities to both the crown and their own people. This journey provided Edmund with first-hand experience of governance beyond the castle walls, showing him the real-world consequences of political decisions and the importance of maintaining strong relationships between different levels of authority within the kingdom's structure. The trip also demonstrated to the people of these regions that their future king was genuinely interested in their welfare and willing to learn about their challenges and concerns. Lady Morwen had opposed this educational journey, arguing that it exposed Prince Edmund to unnecessary risks and that his time would be better spent studying diplomatic protocols and international relations within the safety of the castle's walls. Her objections revealed much about her fundamental approach to leadership, which emphasized control and manipulation over the more challenging but ultimately more effective methods of earning genuine respect and loyalty through demonstrated competence and concern for others' well-being. Sir Gareth had noted these philosophical differences carefully, understanding that they reflected deeper conflicts about the kind of ruler Prince Edmund might become and the direction Valdoria would take under different forms of guidance. The spring season also brought news from neighboring kingdoms that added new dimensions to the political situation within Valdoria. Reports arrived describing conflicts and instabilities in several nearby realms, where traditional royal authority had been challenged or overthrown by ambitious nobles who promised change and reform but delivered chaos and oppression instead. These examples provided Sir Gareth with powerful illustrations for his lessons with Prince Edmund about the importance of legitimate succession and the dangers posed by those who would disrupt established systems of governance for their own benefit rather than the common good. Lady Morwen interpreted these same reports differently, arguing that they demonstrated the need for strong, experienced leadership that could adapt quickly to changing circumstances and protect Valdoria from the kinds of external threats that had destabilized other kingdoms. She suggested that traditional approaches to royal authority might be insufficient for dealing with modern challenges, and that Valdoria needed leaders who understood the harsh realities of international politics and were willing to use whatever methods necessary to protect the kingdom's interests. Her arguments appealed to certain nobles and officials who were genuinely concerned about external threats, even though they didn't fully understand the personal ambitions that motivated Lady Morwen's political maneuvering. As spring progressed toward summer, Sir Gareth began to detect signs that Lady Morwen was preparing for some kind of decisive action that would move beyond political maneuvering toward more direct attempts to control or remove Prince Edmund from his position as heir to the throne. Conversations between her supporters had become more secretive and urgent, with several key figures making unusual trips to meet with contacts outside the kingdom. The Knight's network of informants reported strange movements of supplies and personnel that suggested preparations for activities that went beyond normal court politics into potentially treasonous territory. The legendary knight understood that he faced a critical decision about how to respond to these developments. Direct accusations against Lady Morwen without overwhelming evidence would likely backfire, potentially damaging his own credibility and providing her with opportunities to portray him as an overzealous guardian who saw threats where none existed. However, waiting too long to act might allow Lady Morwen to complete whatever plans she was developing, potentially putting Prince Edmund in immediate physical danger, or creating situations where the young prince could be manipulated or coerced into supporting political changes that would ultimately harm both him and the kingdom. Sir Gareth decided to intensify his protective measures around Prince Edmund while gathering more concrete evidence of Lady Morwen's intentions and capabilities. He arranged for the prince's daily schedule to include more activities in secure areas of the castle where potential threats could be more easily controlled, while maintaining the appearance of normal royal routine that wouldn't alert Lady Morwen to his suspicions. The knight also activated certain contingency plans that he had developed over the years for protecting the royal family during periods of internal instability, including secure communication networks with trusted allies and predetermined safe locations where Prince Edmund could be taken if immediate evacuation became necessary. The tension between these competing factions within Valdoria's royal court had reached a point where careful observers could sense that some kind of confrontation was inevitable, though the exact nature and timing of such a conflict remained uncertain. Sir Gareth knew that his reputation, his honor, and most importantly his sacred oath to protect the royal family would all be tested in the coming weeks or months. The legendary knight prepared himself mentally and physically for whatever challenges lay ahead, drawing strength from his decades of experience, his unshakable loyalty to the crown, and his deep personal affection for the remarkable young prince whose future now hung in the balance of forces, beyond his control, but not beyond his ability to influence through courage, wisdom, and unwavering dedication to duty. The stage had been set for a confrontation that would determine not only the immediate fate of Prince Edmund but the long-term direction of Valdoria itself. As the kingdom stood at a crossroads between the proven stability of traditional royal authority and the uncertain promises of those who claimed that change and reform required abandoning the principles and practices that had served the realm well for countless generations. The summer solstice arrived in Valdoria with unusual heat and an oppressive humidity that seemed to mirror the mounting tension within the royal castle's walls. Lady Morwen had grown increasingly bold in her actions, no longer content to work entirely through intermediaries and subtle influence. She had begun to openly criticize King Aldric's policies during council meetings, suggesting that his peaceful approach to international relations made Valdoria appear weak to potential enemies and trading partners. More troubling still, she had started to propose specific changes to the kingdom's succession laws, arguing that direct bloodline inheritance might not always serve the realm's best interests, when younger heirs lacked the experience and wisdom needed for effective leadership in dangerous times. Sir Gareth recognized these public statements as preparation for more direct action against Prince Edmund's position as rightful heir to the throne. The knight's extensive experience with political intrigue told him that Lady Morwen would not make such bold pronouncements unless she felt confident that she possessed the support and resources necessary to follow through on her implied threats to the established order. His network of loyal informants throughout the castle and kingdom had reported increasing activity among Lady Morwen's supporters, including secretive meetings, unusual financial transactions, and the movement of personnel into positions where they could influence or control key aspects of castle security and administration. The legendary knight decided that the time had come for more decisive action to protect Prince Edmund and preserve the legitimate royal succession that formed the foundation of Valdoria's stability and prosperity. However, Sir Gareth understood that any moves he made must be carefully calculated to avoid providing Lady Morwen with opportunities to portray him as a threat to the royal family, or as someone who exceeded his proper authority as captain of the King's Guard. The knight needed to gather irrefutable evidence of Lady Morwen's treasonous intentions while simultaneously preparing to defend Prince Edmund against whatever form of attack or manipulation she might attempt. Prince Edmund had continued to develop both physically and intellectually under Sir Gareth's careful guidance, showing remarkable progress in swordplay, horsemanship, and the complex arts of leadership and diplomacy. The young prince had also demonstrated an intuitive understanding of the political currents swirling around him, often asking perceptive questions about the motivations of various court figures, and showing wisdom beyond his years in evaluating the advice and suggestions offered by different members of the royal household. Sir Gareth took great pride in Edmund's development, knowing that the prince's natural talents and strong moral character would serve him well regardless of what challenges the future might bring. The relationship between King Aldric and Lady Morwen had deteriorated significantly as her political ambitions became more obvious, and her criticism of royal policies grew more pointed. While the king maintained proper courtesy toward his sister-in-law in public settings, he had begun to limit her access to sensitive information about kingdom affairs, and had quietly asked Sir Gareth to increase security measures around Prince Edmund without directly explaining his specific concerns. King Aldrich was a wise and experienced ruler who understood the delicate balance required to manage internal political threats without creating unnecessary panic or providing enemies with propaganda opportunities. During this tense period, an incident occurred that would prove to be the catalyst for the confrontation that Sir Gareth had long anticipated and prepared for. Lady Morwen had arranged what she described as an educational trip for Prince Edmund to visit a monastery in the northern mountains where ancient texts about royal history and governance were preserved. She argued that studying these historical documents would provide the prince with valuable insights into how previous rulers had handled challenges similar to those facing Valdoria in the present day. The proposed trip would involve several days of travel through remote mountain regions where the small traveling party would be far from the castle's security and support systems. Sir Gareth immediately recognized this proposal as potentially dangerous, noting that the suggested route would take Prince Edmund through territory where Lady Morwen's supporters had significant influence, and where rescue or reinforcement would be difficult if problems arose. The knight also observed that the timing of this proposed trip coincided with a period when King Aldrich would be occupied with a major diplomatic conference involving representatives from neighboring kingdoms, meaning that the king's attention would be divided and his ability to respond to emergencies would be limited. These factors combined to create what Sir Gareth's experienced instincts told him was a carefully planned opportunity for Lady Morwen to gain complete control over Prince Edmund away from the protective environment of the royal castle. When Sir Gareth expressed his concerns about the proposed trip during a private meeting with King Aldrich, the monarch shared the knight's suspicions, but acknowledged the difficulty of refusing Lady Morwen's request without concrete evidence of malicious intent. The king understood that openly accusing his sister-in-law of treasonous plotting would create a major crisis within the royal family and potentially destabilize the entire kingdom if such accusations couldn't be proven conclusively. However, King Aldrich also recognized that allowing Prince Edmund to be taken into a potentially dangerous situation would be an unacceptable risk to the royal succession and the future of Valdoria itself. Sir Gareth proposed a compromise solution that would appear to accommodate Lady Morwen's educational goals while maintaining adequate security for Prince Edmund. He suggested that the prince's party be expanded to include additional guards and scholars, officially justified as providing better protection and more comprehensive educational opportunities during the journey to the mountain monastery. This larger group would make it more difficult for Lady Morwen to isolate Prince Edmund or subject him to unwanted pressure, while also providing Sir Gareth with loyal personnel who could observe and report on any suspicious activities that might occur during the trip. Lady Morwen initially resisted this modification to her plans, arguing that a larger traveling party would be more conspicuous and might actually increase security risks by drawing unwanted attention from bandits or other threats in the mountain regions. She also suggested that too many participants would interfere with the quiet, scholarly atmosphere needed for serious study of the ancient texts housed at the monastery. However, when King Aldrich endorsed Sir Gareth's security recommendations and made it clear that the expanded party was a condition for approving the trip, Lady Morwen eventually agreed to the modifications while expressing reluctance and disappointment at what she characterized as unnecessary complications to a simple educational excursion. The preparations for this journey became a complex exercise in planning and counter-planning, as both Sir Gareth and Lady Morwen worked to ensure that their respective goals would be achieved during the trip to the northern mountains. Sir Gareth carefully selected the additional guards and scholars who would accompany the party, choosing individuals whose loyalty to the crown was beyond question and who possessed the skills and experience necessary to protect Prince Edmund in challenging terrain far from immediate reinforcement. Lady Morwen, meanwhile, used her influence to affect certain aspects of the trip's logistics, including the selection of guides, the timing of various stops along the route, and the specific arrangements for accommodations during the journey. As the departure date approached, Sir Gareth intensified his intelligence-gathering efforts regarding Lady Morwen's true intentions and the resources she had positioned to support whatever plans she might have for Prince Edmund during their time away from the castle. The knight's informants reported increased activity among Lady Morwen's known supporters, including several who had departed the capital city on various pretexts during the days leading up to the planned journey. These movements suggested that Lady Morwen had indeed prepared some kind of action that would take advantage of Prince Edmund's temporary absence from the secure environment of the royal castle and the immediate protection of the king's guard. On the morning before their scheduled departure, Sir Gareth made a final inspection of all preparations while reviewing his contingency plans for various emergency scenarios that might arise during the journey. The legendary knight understood that the next several days would likely determine the future course of his career, Prince Edmund's safety and development, and possibly the stability of Valdoria itself. Sir Gareth drew strength from his decades of faithful service, his unshakable loyalty to the royal family, and his deep personal commitment to protecting the remarkable young prince, who had become like a son to him over the years of their close relationship. The stage was now set for a confrontation in the remote mountain wilderness where Sir Gareth's legendary skills as a warrior and protector would be tested against whatever forces Lady Morwen had assembled to advance her ambitions for power and control over Valdoria's future. With Prince Edmund's fate hanging in the balance of this carefully planned but ultimately unpredictable encounter between competing visions of the kingdom's destiny. 5th chapter. The mountain journey began on a crisp morning, with mist clinging to the valleys like ghostly fingers, creating an atmosphere of mystery and foreboding that seemed to match the tension underlying the seemingly innocent educational expedition. Prince Edmund rode alongside Sir Gareth at the front of their traveling party, his excitement about exploring new territories, balanced by the careful awareness that his trusted mentor had taught him to maintain in unfamiliar situations. The young prince had matured considerably over recent months, developing the kind of alert intelligence and measured judgment that would serve him well as a future ruler of Valdoria, regardless of what challenges the immediate future might bring. Lady Morwen positioned herself strategically within the traveling group, maintaining the appearance of a devoted family member concerned only with Prince Edmund's education, while carefully observing the movements and behavior of Sir Gareth and the loyal guards who accompanied them. She had spent weeks planning for this opportunity, knowing that success would require perfect timing, careful coordination with her supporters, and the ability to manipulate events in ways that would appear natural and unavoidable to casual observers. The mountain regions they were traversing offered numerous possibilities for the kind of incident that could separate Prince Edmund from his protectors and create opportunities for the political changes that Lady Morwen believed were necessary for Valdoria's future. Sir Gareth maintained constant vigilance throughout the first day of travel, his experienced eyes scanning the surrounding terrain for signs of potential threats, while monitoring the behavior of every member of their party for any indication of suspicious intent or preparation for hostile action. The knight's decades of experience in protecting the royal family had taught him to trust his instincts about danger, and those instincts were now warning him that Lady Morwen's carefully planned expedition was building toward some kind of crisis that would test all of his skills and determination as a guardian of the crown and defender of Prince Edmund's rightful place in Valdoria's future. As they made their way through increasingly remote mountain passes, the traveling party encountered what appeared to be a series of natural delays and obstacles that gradually separated them from their planned schedule and route. A bridge across a mountain stream had been damaged by recent storms, forcing them to take a longer detour through unfamiliar territory. Their local guide reported that the main road to the monastery had been blocked by a landslide, necessitating an alternative path that would add extra days to their journey. These incidents might have seemed like ordinary travel complications to most observers, but Sir Gareth recognized them as potentially deliberate obstacles designed to isolate Prince Edmund in locations where rescue would be difficult, and where Lady Morwen's supporters might have positioned themselves to take advantage of the situation. On the second evening of their journey, as the traveling party made camp in a secluded valley surrounded by towering peaks, Sir Gareth's suspicions were confirmed when several armed men emerged from concealed positions among the rocks and trees around their campsite. These individuals were not common bandits seeking easy plunder, but well-equipped fighters who moved with military precision and seemed to know exactly where to find the royal party despite the remote location and alternative routes they had been forced to take. The knight immediately understood that this was the culmination of Lady Morwen's months of planning, the moment when she would attempt to gain complete control over Prince Edmund and eliminate anyone who might interfere with her political ambitions. Lady Morwen stepped forward to address the armed men with familiar authority, making it clear that their appearance was not a surprise to her, but rather part of a carefully orchestrated plan that she had been developing for many months. She announced to the startled members of the traveling party that Prince Edmund's safety required him to be taken to a secure location where he could be protected from threats to his life that had recently been discovered by her intelligence sources. Lady Morwen claimed that King Aldrich had been compromised by foreign agents, and that the royal castle was no longer safe for the heir to the throne, making it necessary for loyal supporters of Valdoria to take temporary custody of Prince Edmund until the kingdom's security could be restored. Sir Gareth recognized these claims as elaborate fabrications designed to provide legal justification for what was essentially an attempted kidnapping and coup against the legitimate royal authority. A legendary knight stepped protectively in front of Prince Edmund while drawing his massive sword, a weapon that had served him faithfully through countless battles, and which now gleamed menacingly in the firelight as he prepared to defend his charge against overwhelming odds. Sir Gareth's voice carried the authority of decades of loyal service as he rejected Lady Morwen's claims and demanded that she abandon this treasonous course of action before it was too late to avoid the severe consequences that would inevitably follow such betrayal of the crown. The confrontation that followed would become the stuff of legend throughout Valdoria and neighboring kingdoms for generations to come. Sir Gareth, though greatly outnumbered by Lady Morwen's supporters, fought with the skill and determination that had made him the most respected knight in the realm. His sword carved deadly arcs through the mountain air as he systematically defeated one opponent after another, using his superior training, experience, and intimate knowledge of combat tactics to overcome the numerical disadvantage he faced. A knight's legendary strength and speed served him well as he protected Prince Edmund while gradually reducing the number of enemies threatening their safety. Prince Edmund, despite his young age, proved that Sir Gareth's training had prepared him well for dangerous situations by remaining calm and alert throughout the battle, even assisting his mentor by warning him of attacks from behind, and helping to coordinate the defensive efforts of those guards who remained loyal to the crown. The young prince's courage and quick thinking during this crisis demonstrated the leadership qualities that would serve Valdoria well in the years to come, showing that he possessed the kind of character and determination that could unite the kingdom behind legitimate royal authority rather than the divisive ambitions of those who sought power for its own sake. As the battle reached its climax, Lady Morwen realized that her carefully laid plans had been thwarted by Sir Gareth's legendary skills and unwavering loyalty to the crown. Faced with the failure of her attempted coup and the prospect of facing justice for her treasonous actions, Lady Morwen made a final desperate attempt to seize Prince Edmund personally, drawing a concealed dagger and rushing toward the young heir while Sir Gareth was engaged with the last of her armed supporters. However, the knight's extraordinary reflexes and protective instincts enabled him to intercept Lady Morwen's attack at the crucial moment, disarming her and placing her under restraint before she could harm Prince Edmund or escape to continue her plotting against the royal family. The aftermath of this mountain confrontation saw the complete collapse of Lady Morwen's political network within Valdoria, as her supporters either fled the kingdom or surrendered to face justice for their participation in the attempted coup against Prince Edmund and the legitimate royal succession. King Aldric, upon learning of these events, moved swiftly to restore order within the royal court and to implement reforms that would prevent similar threats from developing in the future. Lady Morwen herself was exiled from Valdoria permanently, stripped of all titles and properties, and forbidden from ever returning to the kingdom she had sought to control through treachery and violence. Sir Gareth's heroic defense of Prince Edmund during this crisis enhanced his already legendary reputation throughout the kingdom and beyond, with songs and stories celebrating his courage and loyalty spreading to every corner of Valdoria and into neighboring realms. However, the knight took greater satisfaction in the knowledge that Prince Edmund had emerged from this dangerous experience with increased wisdom, confidence, and appreciation for the responsibilities that would one day be his as King of Valdoria. The bond between mentor and student had been strengthened through shared danger, creating a foundation of trust and mutual respect that would serve them both well in the years ahead. Prince Edmund's successful navigation of this crisis marked his transition from childhood toward the kind of mature leadership that Valdoria would need in an increasingly complex world of political intrigue and international competition. Under Sir Gareth's continued guidance, the prince developed into a remarkable young man whose combination of intelligence, courage, and moral character promised a bright future for the kingdom and its people. The attempted coup had ultimately failed not just because of Sir Gareth's legendary fighting skills, but because of the fundamental strength of legitimate royal authority, based on service to the common good rather than personal ambition. The kingdom of Valdoria emerged from this crisis stronger and more united than ever before. with its people having witnessed firsthand the difference between true loyalty to the crown and the destructive ambitions of those who would sacrifice the realm's stability for their own benefit. Sir Gareth continued his faithful service as captain of the King's Guard and mentor to Prince Edmund, knowing that he had successfully fulfilled his sacred oath to protect the royal family and preserve the traditions that had made Valdoria a beacon of justice and prosperity in a often chaotic world. Years later, when Prince Edmund had grown to manhood and taken his rightful place as King Edmund the Just, he would often speak of the lessons he learned during that fateful mountain journey and the debt of gratitude he owed to Sir Gareth the Iron Wall, whose legendary courage and unwavering loyalty had saved not only a young prince's life, but the very soul of the kingdom itself. The story of their adventures together became an enduring symbol of the bonds that can exist between mentor and student, protector and protected, and ultimately, between all those who dedicate themselves to serving something greater than their own immediate interests.